Hello there, I'm Sconchulus, and this is TEPPEN Deck Tech, where I present to you decks that are fun, strong, or interesting. Today I am playing the first control deck of the series, and that means we are playing one of the very best hero arts for control, Oichi, Despair, Wail, and Perish. This art lets us revive up to 3 units and will then buff our entire field. Despair enables a playstyle that wants to stall time to the very end and activate one of the most powerful single cards in TEPPEN, Curse Extraction. Played at the end of the game, this card can buff all of our units and wipe out all of our opponents, letting us get in for direct before burning them and healing ourselves for massive damage. Despair was the best control deck last format, using Alfred Ashcorp and Vile Mach 2 with their hero art to give the deck an answer at every step of the game. But we no longer have access to those cards. In their stead, I opted for a human core focusing on the new evidence mechanic. The payoffs for this are extremely powerful, and we will go over them in the rest of the card by card. First of all, we are playing 2 Selfish Predation. This card is great for letting us deny certain effects as well as a clutch heal. I'm only playing 2 because I always draw them before I need them, and Curse Extraction is usually more than enough to put us over. Next, we are playing Underworld Broker, which costs 2 life and lets us give 1 unit the effect to on damage, add 1 legendary to our hand. It looks like Capcom has finally received my letters and printed a card that lets me draw every one of my legendaries. This card is super fun, I love it, but you don't need more than 1. And on to our humans, we have 3 Winston Payne, a 3-drop 1/5 that gains 2 attack 1 time. I think people are totally sleeping on this card. I suppose he's a bit unassuming, but he makes a fantastic blocker and is the perfect ascend for Nobunaga. I've seen some people playing Sen no Rikyu in their lists, but I prefer Winston. Next we have 3 Roxy, a 3-drop 2/5 that collects 3 evidence on death. I always want to open this card, because this is our easiest way to collect evidence, and we can use her again as soon as our hero art is online. Our next new card is Poison, who collects 2 evidence when another of our units dies, and on death consumes 1 and lowers an enemy's health by 2. Her second effect only gets better as we get further into the game, and makes her that much stronger to bring back with Despair. Our last evidence collector and big payoff for playing evidence is Gearhead Witness Abigail, a 6-drop 1/10 with Rush that on damage collects 2 evidence, and if we have at least 7 evidence, gains 4 attack and Crush 1 time. The wording is a little confusing, but he will gain this right away if we already have enough, which means if we use him to block a unit with 5 or less attack, we can get in for 5 direct. Abigail is a monster anytime he's on the field. Our other evidence payoff is a Likely Motive, which destroys 1 unit and for 3 evidence generates 3 MP. Rules Are Rules is another good option, but I think a Likely Motive fits the deck better, and the present effect puts us way ahead. If we find ourselves with 2 or even 3 a Likely Motive in hand, and Despair online, we are in a very good position. Our remaining units are 2 Regenerator, one of our 2 non-humans, who after surviving damage, will reduce any damage of 3 or less to 1. This card is so good for any Oichi control deck right now that I had to fit it in. We have 1 Akuma, you know what he does, 1 Nobunaga, and Sigma, because they are so good, as well as Black Crown Moro Dumonto, another generic boss that requires fast answers from our opponent. And our big payoff for playing all of these humans is Priestess Rao, who cannot be targeted and when another human dies, transforms into Fox Demon Ninetails. This is the perfect meta for Rao, as nearly every color is playing humans, but even if we are against the rare monster player, we'll usually proc her effect off our own units anyway. While in her Ninetails form, Rao becomes a 4/9 with Veil and possibly the strongest floodgate effect in TEPPEN, making it so whenever our opponent uses an action, one of their units is destroyed. This is extremely hard to play around, but her health is not too difficult to whittle down, unless we pair her with our last boss monster, Dread Dictator M. Bison. He also has Veil if ascended and can destroy an enemy unit on his entrance. Whenever any unit is destroyed, he gives us Psycho Power, which gives a unit +2/+2. Bison is another extremely good control unit, as our opponent is heavily incentivized not to use actions or they will let us play Psycho Power for free. Last of all are our remaining destroys: 1 Dreadful Business, the staple, 3 Fists of Destruction, which can destroy a 3 MP unit, or a 5 MP unit if we use Despair first, and Sharing Memories, which rounds out our matchups. Here's the deck QR for you, and with all that said, let's get into it. Game 1, we are up against Amaterasu Thunder Edge. This isn't exactly Ami's most powerful hero art, but has seen a rise in popularity for the way it enables a certain new card. Hopefully we'll get to see it. We start out with a couple of our best starters, Roxy as well as Regenerator, 2 solid non-committal plays, as well as a bit of Destruction and Black Crown Muradamanto whenever we want to put on the pressure. We'll start out with Roxy before we charge up to 10 and follow that up with Muradamanto. Our opponent plays Logia Cruise as well as Steel Samurai. This is the exact card I was talking about. Steel Samurai has Crush and changes lanes when attacking, which could have been a problem for us if we didn't have a likely motive. We'll destroy the Steel Samurai, charging 3 MP in the process, and leave our opponent with the Actor Will powers. They'll play Wildflower Lee Naotora, and we will activate Underworld Broker starting the action phase. I'm really hoping our opponent will respond, and they do, giving us the chance to use Dreadful Business on their legendary before it even gets in. New players, I recommend take heed of moments like this, where you might let your opponent do something you really didn't want. We will play Regenerator, blocking our opponent's Logia Cruise, and they will play Glavenus, which we will block with Roxy. Our opponent plays Rathalos using their hero art on him. This is an extremely dangerous combo, taking advantage of Rathalos' on-direct attack effect, where he deals damage equal to his own attack to a random unit. Thankfully, we have a quick answer to him in the form of Fists of Destruction. Our opponent responds with Pulse of Destiny, increasing the damage any of our units receive by 1, and someone to look up to on their Logia Cruise, which will allow it to do another 2 damage on every attack. That allows them to take out our Winston in 1 hit. They will attempt to use Thunder Edge to fully buff up their Logia Cruise, and then they use Sun Goddess to see if they can keep him alive. All that really does is give us the chance to use a likely motive. Feels a bit weird to use him on such a low health enemy, but this seems like the perfect moment. We get in for a little bit of damage and our opponent plays another Rathalos. We'll destroy that by ascending for Dread Dictator M. Bison and get in for 3 more damage. It looks like our opponent might be down and out, especially when we play our Rao, but a last second Dread King Rathalos with their hero art just might get them back in. Our Rao transforms and we activate Despair. This looks like the last chance we'll have for it. Our opponent gets in for 4 and they block our Rao, they bring us down to 1, we bring them to 1, and at the last second before they get in, we just charge the MP for a likely motive, forcing our opponent to surrender. Let's move on to Game 2.
How did I do?
Game 2, we are up against the next most popular black deck, Raging Demon. Both of our decks lend themselves to longer, grindy games, so let's see who can pull it off better. We once again open with a few of our best starters, a bit of Destruction, and Akuma, who should give us a little better control this game. We'll start off with Roxy once we charge up to 10 MP, and our opponent will start with a classic gate play, using Roxy and Sigma to level him up, getting in for an early 6 direct. Our opponent attempts to ascend their tube boxes, but just before they do, we ascend our Akuma, destroying Roxy. Our opponent plays Gate and we play Poison as well as Sigma, and our opponent uses Rules Our Rules to destroy our Akuma, which just gives us the chance to heal with Selfish Predation. We destroy their Gate and both of our Sigmas are destroyed. Our opponent plays another Gate to destroy our Poison, and plays Roxy, giving them a full field. They play an extremely greedy Raging Demon, and we are looking somewhat bricked. But I have a play in mind that should get the ball rolling. We'll destroy their Roxy, and when the chain resolves, our Rao will transform into Ninetails. We'll activate Despair, buffing up our Ninetails and summoning 2 units. Our opponent will play Zombie to block, and they are wide open. We should get in for big damage, but our opponent has the exact answer for this board state. Thankfully, we can activate Selfish Predation to heal and unbrick ourselves at the last second, but we are back to square one. Thankfully, we have a pretty good grip for whatever our opponent will send our way. We will play Poison after we charge to 10 MP. I'm trying to stay around 7 for a likely motive. We'll play Sigma, and our opponent will ascend their 2 foxes, which we can destroy with Fist of Destruction. But that lets our opponent use Selfish Predation to heal for 7. Their 2 foxes becomes another 2 for 2 foxes and destroys our poison. They play Sigma in front of our Sigma, and he takes 2 damage from Poison's death trigger. We are back to 10 MP and will play Winston Pain to keep ourselves below 10. Our opponent will block Zombie and activate Assassination List, which gives us as good an opportunity as any for one of our 3 likely motives. We'll destroy their zombie and charge 3 MP in the process. Both of our fields are completely open, and we will play Winston Pain down in the middle. Our opponent uses Duel for Rage and Demon to destroy him, but we have another in hand, which is the perfect blocker for Duel. Our opponent activates Assassination List. They do not want us getting such a good trade, but they just give us a different one instead. They will play Sigma with his Revenge active, and without any better answer, we are forced to use our last A Likely Motive. This time we don't even get the bonus MP. Both of us are wide open, and our opponent will play a couple cheap units filling up their field. This is exactly what I wanted to see, letting us clear their entire board with Sharing Memories.
Here, this one.
There's nothing they can do to stop that, and it will set us up perfectly for our next play, Despair, Wail, and Perish. We have a full field to their empty field, and they will activate Dreadful Business, destroying our Winston. This heals up the rest of our units, but they can destroy the Winston they healed with Raging Demon. And they block our last unit with Sigma, who now has his full Revenge active. There's only a minute left, and they're ahead by 14 points. We will play Poison to block their Duel. She should be enough to get the job done. We have Curse Extraction in hand, we just need a good opportunity to use it. We'll play Tyrant and ascend for Akuma, destroying our Poison, whose death trigger destroys their Tyrant. We'll activate Despair, Wail, and Perish, and this looks like the best chance we'll have for Curse Extraction. We just need a 14-point swing in health. Unfortunately, our opponent has one last Destroy to minimize the effect. We bring them down to 20 and ourselves up to 19. We'll play Sigma and they can block that with a Duel. There's 10 seconds left. They use Rules Are Rules. They destroy our Sigma. It's all tied up. All we have to do is ascend Roxy for Nobunaga right before Curse Extraction wears off, and the burn will let us take a very close Game 2. Let's move on to Game 3. Game 3, we are up against Wesker Dark Destruction. This is the third black deck of the format, and the other best hero art for control decks. Let's see who comes out on top of the black control mirror. Once again, we open a few of our best starters and destroys. This time, we will start with Sigma once we charge up to 10 MP. Our opponent meets that with Zombie, and we will play the Mero Damonta we drew right off the top. Our opponent will play Gate and Sigma, and use Roxy to fully level their Gate, defeating our Mero Damonta. We also play Roxy and another Roxy, and our opponent will ascend for 2 foxes. We will use Winston Pain to block their 2 foxes, but our opponent just ascends another one. We only have one blocker in hand, so we will play Abigail just below 7 evidence, and it looks like his effect actually triggered before his counter, letting him one-shot 2 foxes twice. Our opponent activates Dreadful Business, dealing with Abigail before he causes them any more trouble. And it looks like this game is going to become very patient. Our hand is nothing but Destroys and Curse Extraction. The same, hopefully, is not true of our opponent. They play Roxy, which we can destroy with Fist of Destruction, drawing into a unit at least. I would prefer not to play Akuma outright, and our opponent gives us a chance to destroy their Tyrant. We draw into Poison, and our opponent plays Gate with the field wide open. We will block that with our Poison, bringing him down below 3 HP, letting us use Akuma to destroy him. Our opponent plays Tyrant and Sigma, using Dark Destruction to destroy Akuma. They're coming in for 8 damage, which is way more than we can take. We have to use Despair. But our opponent had whipped into shape at the ready. At least we can use a likely motive, but they fire back with Assassination List. Things are not looking great for us. At least we can block with Poison, who should be able to deal with Sigma. They play Gate and ascend for Akuma, destroying Poison. They use Dark Destruction to clear our field and get in a little damage. we block with Regenerator, one of the few good units to answer Akuma, and activate Fist of Destruction, destroying their gate, which just lets them sacrifice him, healing back to full. Our opponent plays Zombie as well as Sigma, which we can thankfully answer with our own Sigma. Our Regenerator is destroyed, and we will use Despair to protect our Sigma and bring back 2 units. Our Akuma is destroyed, taking a Tube Fox with him, and our opponent activates Selfish Predation. At this point, I do not know whether to use a Likely Motive or Sharing Memories. I panic and use Sharing Memories, which I wholeheartedly think was the wrong decision. Our opponent now has a full field to use Spreading Infection, putting 3 units on board, and we have only 1 blocker. And Bison for 7. It doesn't look like we will be able to stop them in time. They get in for 6, another 6, and we are forced to surrender, losing game 3. Here we are again, and I think second best black deck isn't too bad. And I hate to show games where I misplay, but I think that Wesker player had our number. That said, I think Human Evidence is an extremely solid core for Despair, having strong payoffs, a variety of destroys, and putting on solid pressure throughout the game. As far as matchups go, we should be able to stop green from ever reaching their endgame. The one exception is Memory Yawn, which is another late game deck, but if you play your cards right, this deck can get it done. The deck has a solid matchup against red humans, but struggles a little more against Denjin and Ultimate Weapon. As far as black, you saw that, and admittedly, the most popular deck at the moment, Slurple, does give us trouble because we cannot control the pace. I recommend the deck to anybody who likes long games where they have full control over the outcome. As for the next episode, let me know down below whether you would rather see black-green Ashura Senku or purple-green Devil Breaker. Please like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you subscribed. Once again, I'm Sconchulus, and I'll see you in the next one.